What if I told you the most powerful tech company in the world doesn't sell you ads, phones, or cloud storage, but influence, control, secrets? Welcome to the world of Palantir, the company you've probably never used, but that's been quietly shaping governments, wars, and maybe even your private life. Buckle up, because this story is one hell of a data ride. Let's rewind to 2003. Silicon Valley was still licking its wounds from the dot-com crash. Peter Thiel, yes, PayPal's Peter Thiel, teams up with Alex Karp, a wiry philosopher with a PhD in aggression theory, who once wrote under Jürgen Habermas. Add a few Stanford brainiacs and, surprise, CIA venture capital, and you get Palantir. At first, it was about fighting terrorism. As early Wired profiles reveal, Thiel believed no human could process the dots fast enough, so why not build software to do it? But what began as counter-terrorism quickly slipped its leash. Thiel, a vocal critic of democracy, saw opportunity. Governments drowning in data, desperate for control. Karp became the public face. Barefoot interviews, Tai Chi routines, talking about defending the West. But insiders whispered, behind the eccentric image was cold ambition. One former engineer said, half in awe, half in fear, "We weren't just selling software, we were rewiring the intelligence world." The CIA's In-Q-Tel wasn't just an investor, it was Palantir's first client. Gotham, their flagship tool, became the crystal ball CIA officers never knew they wanted. It wasn't long before the Pentagon, NSA, and FBI came knocking, desperate to predict the next 9/11. But here's where the line blurred. As The Atlantic once noted, when you build tools to predict human behavior, it's only a matter of time before you're predicting everything. Not just terrorists, but markets, citizens, protests. And once you offer governments a taste of prediction, they don't want to go back. Gotham, the government jewel, stitches together phone records, financial data, license plate scans, social media, even biometrics. One intelligence officer told The Guardian it was like Minority Report, except we actually use it. Foundry, Palantir's corporate twin, crept quietly into companies like Airbus, Merck, Morgan Stanley. It links logistics, supply chains, R&D, turning messy data into crisp dashboards. During the pandemic, health ministries like the NHS turned to Palantir to track ICU beds and vaccine logistics. Speed was everything. Privacy? Well, we can circle back to that later. And then there's Apollo, Palantir's God mode layer. As Wired described, Apollo lets Palantir push software updates across military and corporate clients simultaneously, like a global nervous system. Insiders said the thrill was real, but so was the terror. One wrong line of code, said a former developer, and you could black out a NATO command center or a pharma plant in Belgium. But the real magic? The unknown unknowns. Palantir systems don't just show you what's happening. They surface things you didn't even think to look for. A hidden transaction pattern, a fringe online connection, a faint ripple before the wave hits. One former engineer told Politico, sometimes the system would flag something, and no one could explain why. But the scary part? People acted on it anyway, because when the machine points, you follow. Palantir didn't just win over governments, it became their secret weapon. In Afghanistan, soldiers improvised battlefield apps to survive chaotic intelligence dumps. NPR recounted how Palantir's software arrived not as a tool, but a lifeline. One Marine called Gotham more lethal than any weapon in our arsenal, because it could predict where the next roadside bomb would be. In Ukraine, Palantir went from defense contractor to wartime partner. Reuters detailed how Palantir's tools blended drone feeds, satellite imagery, and frontline sensor data, helping Ukrainian forces track Russian armor, predict cyber attacks, and, some quietly say, help plot strikes deep inside enemy territory. Ukrainian commanders reportedly called it David's slingshot, a digital edge against a Goliath. Then came the pandemic. The Financial Times revealed that Britain's NHS handed Palantir a gold mine: real-time ICU loads, patient flows, vaccination logistics. Health chiefs praised the efficiency. But as privacy advocates warned in The Guardian, this wasn't just hospital management. It was putting national health infrastructure in the hands of a defense contractor known for immigration raids and battlefield tools. And Palantir didn't stop there. Foundry slipped into boardrooms and hedge funds. Merck used it to accelerate drug trials. Ferrari used it to streamline manufacturing. Morgan Stanley used it to simulate portfolio risk. As Politico described, executives were drawn to the promise of foresight, the idea that enough data could make uncertainty vanish. But ex-employees told Wired they saw mission creep. "We built software to find terrorists," one said. Then it flagged loan defaulters. Then HR flagged underperformers. And soon, no one questioned where the line was. But let's step into the shadows. Palantir's collaboration with ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, sparked national protests. The Guardian captured the fury. Protesters chained themselves to Palantir's offices, accusing it of fueling mass deportations and family separations. NPR reported how ICE agents used Palantir to cross-link arrest records, license plate hits, social media posts, even school contacts, creating what one rights group called a digital dragnet. Inside Palantir, the pressure grew. Wired revealed internal emails where engineers questioned whether they were building tools for justice or for state overreach. Some resigned, publishing open letters, worried they were no longer fighting terror but hunting the vulnerable. In the UK, it was health, not borders. The Guardian and Financial Times uncovered alarm bells over Palantir's NHS work, with watchdogs warning about patient data flowing through a company with deep military ties. Doctors worried not just about privacy, but about what happens when care decisions are shaped by algorithms designed for battlefield efficiency. And then there's predictive policing. Amnesty International and The Intercept documented how Palantir's tools fueled so-called heat lists in U.S. cities, identifying individuals supposedly at risk of committing crimes, often based on biased or incomplete data. Studies showed these lists disproportionately targeted Black and Latino communities. A former police chief admitted to Wired, "Half the time, we didn't know why someone was on the list, but you still send the patrol cars. And here's the catch. Once flagged by the system, good luck getting unflagged." As Politico put it, when suspicion is automated, appeals vanish. If you think Palantir was content with war zones and spy agencies, think again. Bloomberg called Palantir Wall Street's obsession. Foundry, its corporate brain, became the ultimate business oracle. Hedge funds used it to detect market micro-shifts. Telecom giants like AT&T used it to predict outages before they happened. Even Heineken, yes, beer, used Palantir to track production, predict regional tastes, and optimize distribution. But here's the unsettling part. Wired insiders admitted, at some point, Foundry stopped being a tool and became the boss. One exec confessed, "We weren't just using data. The data was telling us what to do." In healthcare, The Atlantic reported on hospitals using Palantir to predict patient outcomes. Who'd benefit from intervention, who wouldn't. On paper, cost-saving genius. But critics wondered, what happens when an algorithm decides who's worth saving? And the stickiest part? Lock-in. Politico noted that investors don't just ask about revenue, they ask about entrenchment. One analyst quipped, "It's easier to replace your CEO than rip out Palantir. Once the system integrates, it becomes the nervous system." Ex-Palantir engineers, Wired recounts, worried they'd unleashed something too adaptable. "We designed it for war zones," one said. "Then we blinked, and it was running HR, logistics, risk. No one ever paused to ask, should it?" Enter AIP, Palantir's artificial intelligence platform, or as TechCrunch dubbed it, ChatGPT with missiles. NATO, Israel, the U.S. military, all embedding AIP into operations. It pulls live satellite feeds, troop movements, intercepts, and cyber noise, spitting out battlefield recommendations in real time. Bloomberg quoted one NATO officer. "You don't have time to second-guess it, but it's not just about war." Wired noted AIP is now modeling cyber attacks, disinformation, even climate risk. Politico warned of a governance gap. Governments racing to regulate tools they don't fully understand. And Ian Bremmer's techno-polarity theory looms. When private tech rivals states, old rules collapse. Inside Palantir, Bloomberg revealed, some engineers call AIP the dragon, mesmerizing, immense, but ultimately untamable. European lawmakers, reported by the Times of London, have started grilling defense chiefs. Are we betting national security on software we don't control? And here's the kicker. Bloomberg reports AIP modules are being sold to private corporations to optimize supply chains, energy grids, even personnel management. Once, AIP shaped wars. Now, it shapes everything. So, where does this end? Bloomberg forecasts Palantir's next frontier isn't just defense or business, it's public life. Axios reports governments piloting Palantir for pandemic response, traffic management, even social service delivery. But here's the chilling twist. As Ian Bremmer warns, when code governs society, democracy thins. The Atlantic reported Palantir execs proudly claim they work only with aligned democracies. But what's a democracy when police patrols, welfare checks, and disaster responses are driven by black box algorithms? Lawmakers are waking up. The Times of London described heated hearings where MPs grilled defense ministers over Palantir dependence. Are we outsourcing sovereignty? Axios captured U.S. senators on both sides, expressing unease as Palantir lobbies for bigger federal roles. Inside the company, Wired painted a surreal mood, a mix of triumph, awe, and dread. Karp muses on freedom and chaos. Thiel chases biotech, crypto, space. Ex-employees quietly ask, did we build a stabilizer or a destabilizer? Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch warn, once predictive governance becomes normal, it's nearly irreversible. And in a world where the unpredictable, the messy, the human, is squeezed out by data models, the ultimate question isn't what can Palantir do? It's what can we stop it from doing? So here's the final question. Is Palantir the guardian we need, or the storm we can't escape? Drop your thoughts in the comments, smash like if this shook your worldview, and subscribe to Hidden Dirt. Because trust me, when it comes to Palantir, we're just scratching the surface.